Welcome to today's program, Elements of a Successful Arboricultural Consulting Practice, brought to you by ASCA. For technical assistance at any time today, please send us an email to asca@compartners.com. That email address is currently displayed in the chat box area and will remain there throughout today's program. You can also type a question in the chat box if you're experiencing any technical difficulties. Today's program is scheduled for up to 60 minutes and includes a specific question and answer segment. To interact with the presenters, you may submit a question at any time by using the chat feature located on the lower left side of your screen. Simply type your question in the chat box and be sure to click on the send button located next to the box. These instructions will be repeated later in the program. Today's program also includes live polling questions. When a poll question appears on your screen, please click in the box next to the answer of your choice, and your anonymous responses will be sent directly to our presenters. If you would also take a moment now to look at the left side of the screen, you'll notice the links area, where you'll find valuable resources related to today's program. Just click once on the link of your choice, and a separate web browser window will open to allow you to print, view, or save the document. This will not interfere with your viewing of the presentation. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. Jim Clark, Ph.D., RCA number 357, is Vice President of Horse Science, Inc., and is an internationally known arborist who lectures in arboricultural and urban forestry worldwide. Jim is the current National President of ASCA. He has 20 years of technical research and practical experience in tree risk assessment, tree preservation, and urban forest planning and management. Jim is co-author of 4 books and has published over 30 articles in scientific journals. Prior to joining Horse Science, a consulting firm providing horticultural, arboricultural, and urban forestry consulting services in 1991, he was a faculty member at the Center for Urban Horticulture at the University of Washington and a professor at Michigan State University. Also joining us is Barb Neal, RCA number 428, is the principal of Green Legacy Tree Consultants, Inc. Barb has considerable experience in training in the field of arboricultural and landscape management. She has taught at Cornell and George Washington University. She is a board-certified master arborist and was recently certified by New York State as a women-owned business enterprise. She has been consulting since 2006 and recently moved her business from Washington, D.C. to upstate New York. And rounding out our panel today is Cabot Cameron, the owner and founder of Druid Tree Service, Inc., a TCIA-accredited tree care company located in Nashville, Tennessee, serving residential and commercial clients. Cabot has over 35 years working to educate clients on proper long-term care and land stewardship. He also maintains consulting business, which he carefully keeps separate from the tree service operations. Cabot has unique experience of maintaining the ethics and standards of ASCA for consulting projects and the TCIA ethics and standards for the company's tree care operations. Starting off today will be Jim Clark. Jim, welcome to the program. The audience is all yours.
Thank you, Sean. Welcome, everyone, to the first of ASCA's new webinar series. We're really excited about the opportunity to offer a new educational program using a new technique and method for us. Today, joining us, in addition to the participants, you have members and arborists from over 30 states in the U.S., from several provinces in Canada, Mexico, Australia, Singapore, and New Zealand. A diverse group, worldwide group of consulting arborists or potential consulting arborists. This program is brought to you by the American Society of Consulting Arborists, better known as ASCA. We consider ourselves a professional association that is focused solely on arboricultural consulting. Our members provide technical expertise and advice in managing trees and urban forests. ASCA offers a multitude of resources to those who are in the field or thinking about becoming a consultant. We believe that if you're providing advice and expertise in the field of arboriculture and tree care, ASCA is for you. Before I get too far into our program, I'd like to acknowledge the leadership of Bill Scott, a member of the ASCA staff, for putting together today's series. Bill is a silent partner today, but he's played a major role in making this program possible. Today we're going to have three goals for you. We'd like to help you through the issues that are involved in becoming a consulting arborist. We're going to have Barb and Cabot and I will share experiences with you. We've currently consulted our consultants, and we're doing that in several different venues. Second, we want to have you appreciate that there is no single path or business model for arboricultural consulting. ASCA has about 560 members right now, and there are probably 550 different business models or paths to success. As Sean says, you'll have an opportunity to ask us questions, and then we're going to have two polls that we'll go through. This webinar series is designed for people who are just getting started or thinking about becoming consultants. And today we're going to highlight most of the issues that are around the business aspects of consulting, and subsequent webinars will go into greater detail on the areas that we touch on today. So, to get started, our first poll is, where are you now? So we'd like to know a little bit about how you're currently earning a living. So I'd like you to go ahead and on the left side of the screen there, click the option that best describes where you derive the bulk of your income, and we'll have an opportunity to see where the audience fits in. So let's take a minute and go ahead and do that. So as you can see already, we have equal numbers of people who are currently practicing as consultants, and a number of you, even more, are practicing as commercial arborists. I would say it's our experience in the field that owning a tree care firm or working in a tree care firm is one of the ways that people find their way to ASCA and to consulting, even if they don't consider themselves consultants. So I'm just going to give you a few more seconds to fill in the responses. If you are under the other category, if you'd like to, feel free to type in and in the chat box what area you're working in. That would be interesting for us because you got other in there. So it looks like we have about 100 and some, well over 100 responses. And you can see most of the people on today's call are either commercial arborists or consultants. But you'll also note that we have a wide range of participants across the other fields that might be considered part of arboriculture. So thank you. So I'd like to start with what is a consulting arborist and how do we describe ourselves. We think of a consulting arborist as being a tree expert who provides objective, independent, and comprehensive perspectives and information to diagnosis, evaluation, and management of arboricultural issues, trees and urban forests. Many of the consulting arborists will also participate in dispute resolution, providing consulting and expert testimony in legal, insurance, and environmental areas. Consulting arborists, as we'll see, work with a diverse set of clients from individual homeowners all the way to communities and attorneys. So we think really that consulting arborists have clients, contractors and regular arborists have customers. In that consulting client relationship, there really is a different set of responsibilities and roles that we play. Most consultants, most members of ASCA would have a bachelor's degree or some post-high school education. I don't think there's a particular requirement among our field. Our members are very diverse in that regard. However, in some local jurisdictions and some states in the U.S., there are specific requirements or certifications that are needed in order to practice what we would consider to be consulting arboriculture. So because we have so many states and countries represented, you need to learn what are the rules and regulations in your community that may play a role and have an impact on your practice. Finally, if you'd like to learn more about ASCA and ASCA membership, I invite you to go to our website. There is information, both general information about arboricultural consulting and about the organization itself. So as you have, I've already suggested that we consulting arborists come from a diverse set of backgrounds. Today we have mostly consultants and commercial arborists, but as well other diverse kind of utility municipal arborists, people that are nonprofits and work in in the academic field. Again, our perspective about this is there are many business models that lead to being a consultant, and there is no single path that is going to take you and make your business successful. We have in our consulting arboriculture, we have people who practice independently. They are sole practitioners. They may own small firms that are consulting oriented, or they may work for commercial tree care firms and supply information and advice both internally and externally. There's no particular or specific career path. We have both full-time and part-time consultants in our field. Traditionally at ASCA conferences, about a third of the attendees are full-time consultants. And by that I mean they derive the bulk of their income solely from consulting. Whereas about 40 or 50% of conference attendees derive some part-time, or either practice part-time or they derive a part-time income from consulting. And I don't have a definition of part-time for you there. It's a self-definition. We have both people who in the field who practice as individuals. Barb Neal, as an example, is a sole practitioner. I have a small company, and that is solely oriented towards consulting. Cabot has a tree service business, as you'll hear, and he provides consulting services as well as more traditional tree care practices. Then we have corporate consultants. I think joining us today is some people from the Bartlett Tree Research Lab. We in the field have heard Tom Smiley and Bruce Friedrich speak at professional meetings, and Tom and Bruce serve as internal consultants to Bartlett. They provide advice and expertise to their reps and to the outside world. And in that sense, they are serving as consultants even if their title is not necessarily consultant. I'd like to speak a little bit about getting started as a consultant. I'm going to leave most of the technical discussion to Cabot and Barb. I really want to focus on two questions. And the first question is, why am I doing this? And the second is this a viable career for me? I really think that understanding why you want to be a consultant is a key question for each of us to answer and then be comfortable with our answer. It may shape your goals and your definition of success. For example, if we're a climber that's a traditional climber that's ready to not climb anymore and you want to move into consulting, that might be different than someone who is just out of school and wants to be a consultant as a career path. Or perhaps you may be working in a corporate environment now and you'd simply like to work independently. Each of those questions has to be, each of those people have to answer their own question. And in my own experience, my reason for becoming a consultant was I met somebody who was having more fun doing what she was doing than I was having doing what I was doing, and I wanted to play her game. And the second, is this a viable business opportunity? The answer is yes. I would say that we know that small businesses have a high rate of failure compared to success, but certainly if we look around the country, there are models for us to follow about being successful. And I think one of those fundamental issues is you have to have a good business background and plan in order to maintain that success, particularly if you expect to have this be your full-time income, and if you're looking to have a supplemental income as a part-time consultant, there are some fundamental business decisions that we need to answer. I think those are the two questions I would offer that you think about as the big picture. Certainly, why am I doing this is one. What is life as a consultant like? Well, you can be self-employed. You can be a business owner. You can be consulting as a part of someone else's business. The key aspect of this is your corporate structure, how you structure your business or your self-employment is going to relate directly to your insurance requirements, your tax status, your corporate status, how you account for your time, and so forth. You need to establish a company that reflects your needs, establish a structure that reflects your needs, and I think as consultants we need to acknowledge the risk and the insurance requirements that we would have. I'll make a couple comments about that in a second. If you already own a tree care business or you're practicing as a contractor, you may need to include errors and omissions insurance and some additional insurance in your existing package in order to reflect a new sideline, a new business line of consulting. I think also if you're part of an existing tree care firm or some other kind of institution, you need to have realistic expectations about income. Is consulting something that we're doing to provide as a service and we don't expect to make any money at it, or is consulting something that we expect to be an income-producing aspect of our business? Certainly, if you're adding consulting to your existing tree care firm, you need to have that discussion either with yourself or with the people that are going to be responsible for it, because I think that's a key in order to decide if you're being successful, to manage success. So if you are in the position where you're making a transition, you're in a situation where you're giving advice or you're practicing as a consultant to get started, you may want to consider how and when do I start. We would certainly say that you want to start after you've addressed some of these fundamental issues. And I think, for example, if you want to call yourself Hort Science, can you get a website that's www.hortscience.com? If you want to call yourself something else, can you establish a doing business as that name? And I think these are key elements you want to get started, you want in place before you get started. I think how we start varies by business model, and certainly, again, for our contractors who are listening, you're probably already consulting, but you don't know it yet. You're providing advice and expertise. It may even be for free, and that is a consultation because the exchange is your knowledge and experience rather than a service as a traditional pruning or tree removal. suppose now we've decided that we're coming out our shingle, we've become a consulting firm. What do we do now? The one thing we can't do is sit around and wait for the phone to ring. Consulting is one of those situations where people don't need you, they don't think about us until there's an absolute need, and once there's the need, they want it right away. So in that time when we're waiting for clients, I think we need to be out volunteering, what I might describe as giving it away. Do projects for churches, community groups, nonprofits, be involved with groups in your community as a volunteer, help them get state grants, provide technical expertise to local nonprofits. Getting your name and visibility as a consultant is key. A second component to that is practicing and having your work product out there available. So writing reports and thinking about the kind of practice you want to have. This volunteer work is an excellent way to do that. So I encourage you. I was recently at the Consulting Academy, the ASCA's Academy, and there were 4 instructors. Each of them acknowledged that when they first got started, they spent a lot of time volunteering and providing expertise to people for free while they built their reputation and name recognition in the marketplace. So with that thought in mind, we're going to have I'd like to ask you to take another poll. Have you thought about what niche you would like to provide as a consultant? What kind of business you want to have? Is it full-time, part-time, within a corporate environment, on your own, independent? It may not be markets and services yet. Let's just think about the kind of company that you are interested in developing. So we'll take a minute to fill in the poll. As you can see, about 2/3 of the respondents so far have said, yes, I know what I want to do. We've got some not sure, and it looks like we have 8 no's who are, among the no's, you might want to type in a question about why you're not sure or uncertain. Maybe you haven't answered some of the questions we've talked about and will continue to talk about. So I'd like to talk about choosing your niche, a little bit about developing our markets and services. I gave you some ideas about the kind of corporate business structure that you might look for. I really would like to focus then on the kinds of work you want to do and the kinds of clients you want to work for. And perhaps more importantly, it is what do you want to do and not do, and who do you want to work for and perhaps avoid. Let me give you 2 examples. A good number of consulting arborists prefer not to work in the development side, in land development. They don't want to be involved with developers, engineers, landscape architects doing tree preservation work. And that's simply a decision they make. Another example is some consultants prefer not to work for public agencies because they have contract requirements that may be onerous. For example, we deal with a number of engineering landscape architecture firms that regard us as PWP. They don't pay us until they get paid. So it's not like we can expect a check within 10 days after we send them an invoice. So I'd like to think, you want to think about what do I want to do, and then what work are you willing to turn down? Perhaps the question there is, who am I really? What kind of person or consultant do I want to be? Our consultants work with clients that range from individual homeowners and homeowner associations to regular corporations and municipalities, other public agencies, law firms and insurance companies, and then large commercial institutional property managers. And somewhere in there is a client type that you'd like to have, and your marketing and strategy will all be aimed at those potential clients. At the same time, we offer a diverse range of services. We have an area we call tree assessment. This could be tree preservation programming. It could be tree risk assessment. It could be diagnosis and what's wrong with my plant. Some consultants offer a fair number of appraisals. That's how much is my tree or landscape worth? What is the damage associated with a particular problem? Some consultants focus on forensic and expert witness work, and a few work directly in dispute resolution as mediators, helping people, perhaps neighbors, address their tree conflicts. So I'd like to just summarize and put some pieces together, which deciding your clients and markets, the nature of your firm, will help you determine whether you need to be an LLC or a C Corp or an S Corp or a sole proprietor. And you need to determine that company structure that's going to work best for you. At the same time, the clients that you determine or that you want to work with will impact the kinds of insurance that you need. So if you work for a public agency or a large company, they're going to have insurance requirements that a homeowner or a homeowner association may not have. And however these influence the bottom line will have to be reflected in your fees and your management of your time. And so I think these are like fundamental decisions to consider. Even if you're not certain about them now, eventually you will have to be certain about them, and you want your business structure and your insurance to reflect that. So I'd like to ask Cabot and Barb to comment about this general background. So Cabot and Barb, you have some thoughts? This is Cabot.
I can tell you, this is Barb speaking. It was a very exciting day. I remember I decided to become a consulting arborist independent from the company I had worked for on a plane flight back from an ASCA conference. I still remember it was a cross-country flight, and I just knew that it was time to take a new journey. I started my business in 2006 and haven't looked back. But I know somebody asked a question, how do you decide what kind of business format, business structure to have? And honestly, there's no one right answer to that. The best thing to do would be to start writing your business plan and meet with a CPA and get some legal advice before making that decision.
Cabot? Okay, let's move on then to some question and answers from the audience. Here's a question. How do you volunteer and give it away? Sorry for the give it away. To get your consulting practice noticed without leaving the impression that you'll work for free, that what you produce has little value. I think there's two questions there. One is, how do you make sure that your product has value? And even though you're giving it, you're donating it. I think that is, does it have value to the client? So if you had a local church that was doing a renovation project and you provided them with a tree report and some help in developing that or responding to city's concerns or monitoring or making prudent tree care decisions, that's going to have value whether you're getting paid for it or not. And so I think that's one example that we're not skimping or stinting or providing something that's less than a good product. We're providing our best product because we're using it as a kind of marketing tool. I don't think that anyone who is in the field is going to worry about or wonder that you're giving it away for free. You don't have to say, I'm willing to donate my time for this particular project because it's a nonprofit group and they don't have any money, or because it's a local gardening group and something like that. I think you can make that clear. if you're in business and have business cards, I think everyone acknowledges, people acknowledge that you you have some interest in getting paid. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of the different business corporate types with respect to your consulting practice? Which should I choose? I think we'll have a follow-up webinar on contracts and organizations. You may want to save that question for that time. I think the question may relate to, am I going to practice myself? Am I going to have partners? And am I going to have employees? And each of the basic business corporate organizations may offer you some opportunity there.
Jim.
Cabot, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I was going to jump in before, but I had it on mute. My passion of teaching about trees and botany and biology has stimulated me to get into the consulting business from just the tree service business. The answers that I am asked, or the questions that I'm asked all the time, come from the general public, and they really want an expert to lay it out and figure out what the proper thing to do is. And when it's not an estimate, and it really is a technical question, then from the point of call, we decide in the office, or I decide myself, if this is truly a consulting question or just a general information question. So then I go to the site as a consultant, and that is how I determine whether to get paid or whether to give it away. Sometimes there's a line that you have to straddle, but usually it's a pretty clear question and a pretty clear answer.
Thanks, Cabot. Just one more observation before we move on. Several people have written in and said, join service organizations like Kiwanis and Rotary, give a presentation, donate a couple of hours consultation at an auction, get involved at the PTA or at schools and tree planting events. Municipalities are always looking for people to educate about trees. Arbor Day celebration, we've got Arbor Day coming up here this spring. So I think this idea of volunteering is something that many consultants have done, and so long as you're making it clear, I'm a business person, but I'm willing to donate for your project. That's gonna help you and certainly establish your reputation in the marketplace.
That's exactly right. In my section on business management of the business of consulting, I will go into those things on how to do the marketing part, which is all what you said is all part of marketing yourself or your business.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to Barb Neal, who's going to talk to us about getting our practice started. Barb?
Okay, everybody. I'm going to talk about two different topics. The first, I'm going to touch briefly on insurance, and then get into business development and how do you get that phone to start to ring once you've hung out your shingle. So insurance, most of you, if you've worked for another tree care company or another kind of company, you recognize that there's a bunch of different policies that you have to carry. You have to have workers' compensation insurance for your workers, and depending on the state and your corporate setup, you may have to have workers' compensation for yourself. You need general liability insurance. You probably have property insurance and, of course, vehicle insurance. But what you might not realize is that there's a kind of insurance that is targeted to consultants, and it's called professional liability insurance, or more commonly referred to as errors and omissions, or even shorter, E&O. Think of E&O as a kind of insurance for the work that we as consultants do. If you think about it like malpractice insurance for doctors, you're probably close to it. And I'm no expert on insurance, but it is the kind of insurance that covers the opinions and any liability that comes from you generating opinions. It's not an easy check to write, I will say that. Very few of us are ever sued, but it is the kind of, it does give you peace of mind when you're out there doing assessments. Think about yourself. If you're doing a hazard assessment on a large tree, it is nice to know you have a policy that backs up your opinion. I highly recommend that in April, ASCA is hosting an in-depth webinar on insurance. And whether you're brand new to the industry and just finding out about these kinds of insurance, or you've been writing that check for professional liability insurance for a long time, I recommend that you attend this. I'm sure we could all learn a lot from it. Okay, before I start in on business development, I just want to talk a second about my business history, because I think it helps a lot illustrate what how I've come to this business development concept. When I opened my business in Washington, D.C., I had been working 20 years in the green industry. I had quite a large, solid network of professional relationships. And I also was working in an area with, quite frankly, quite few of us as consulting arborists, a lot of large trees and a lot of high-value real estate. And an understanding by the folks that live in the Washington area that there's a real value that consultants bring as an independent voice for their tree management. And so, quite frankly, I did kind of hang out my shingle, and the phone did ring. And I got a lot of referrals from the ASCA website. I got a lot of referrals from my professional network. Then, and so my business steadily grew. I started being a consulting arborist for some small municipalities in the Washington area, and things were going along swimmingly. Then in 2010, my family made the decision to move to upstate New York. And as I like to say, it was a fabulous family move, and it was a difficult and challenging business move. So now I'm back in the situation that many of you are if you're just hanging out your shingle. How do you get the phone to ring when you're in a brand new place? I have the benefit of having gone to graduate school here at Cornell University, and so my professors have given some referrals to me, which is great and appreciated. But I've been really focusing the last few months on business development. Business development, here's the deal. You can't put an ad in the paper and expect to get any response. I think I've talked to a bunch of us at the ASCA Academy, and I don't think anybody has had much success in drumming up consulting business through advertising. The way that you develop your business is to really think strategically about the relationships that you need to build that will build a pipeline for your business, a pipeline of work, and incorporate that strategic plan into your formal business plan. The first thing that you want to do is identify who are the clients that you want to work for and the projects that you want to work on. And understanding that for many of us, we're going to be working as a member of a team on a project. So we might be working with developers, landscape architects, municipalities, other folks like that. And we have to understand, A, our team role, and also understand our position within the team, and make sure that we give as much value to the project that we can possibly bring without overstepping our bounds. One of the things that I've been working on in the last few months has been to really strategically think about building relationships with my target market clients. And the first thing you have to do when you're thinking strategically is you have to be able to define what you do to others so that they can pass on the good news about your business and the value that you bring to your clients. And one of the things that you have that it sounds simple, but it's not so simple, is you need to have a unique value proposition. It sounds like it's sort of business speak, but what it is what do you do, what value do you bring to a project, to a client, and you have to be able to have it clear, concise, and repeatable, so that if I'm talking to somebody, I've met an architect, they can clearly and effectively pass your business information onto their network of contacts. And so this is sort of the basis of networking. Networking is hard work, and it doesn't mean you go to these, Chamber of Commerce and get a drink and get a little plate of food and eat. You're really having to think about who's your target market, what do they need to know, and really have a strategy for this kind of work. At the academy, we were talking about marketing, and one of the things that I said is we've talked about having a niche within our industry. Remember, our industry is a niche, and not many people know what it is that we do. They don't even know the consulting arborist even exists. So your message has to be really clear and concise so other people can understand what you do and be able to pass that knowledge on. Jim, would you like to share what your unique value proposition is?
Sure. At Hort Science, I like to say that our unique value proposition is we solve people's tree problems. And the normal response to that is, I didn't know people could have tree problems, which gives me an opportunity to tell them what kind of problems we have, or is it the tree that's the problem or the person that's the problem? And sometimes it's one or the other. And that's our that's the unique value proposition I use.
Yeah, I'm still working on mine, but my current version is I help my clients better understand their trees so they can solve their tree-related issues. And again, they don't always know that they have tree-related issues, but that's what I'm working with right now. But it is a moving target. I'm still working on it.
And I'll jump in here. This is Cabot. One of my values is, as a consulting arborist, is letting people know the value of their trees and what it takes to protect that asset. So I do a lot of fertility and health and safety consultations. That's one of my main niches, as far as that's probably the most common thing that I do when I consult. And then the other is the legal consulting. But probably the bread and butter is just what is the value of your trees and how do you protect that asset value.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Cabot, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can tell us about managing your business.
Okay, thank you so much. Probably the first part is the contract, and the contract starts with the phone call. You really have to keep track of the phone call, when it came in, who it was from, contact information, and then carefully listen, and then decide that you want to either do this or you can help this person, and you have an agreement to go forward and to at least look at the problem. And you can either start the meter at that time, or you can start the meter when you decide there is a problem and that you can help as a consultant. And then you keep track of all of the time that you spend, and then you have a letter of engagement. You engage the client, you sign a letter of engagement that you will deliver a certain expertise of consulting, and you define the assignment, and you have the rights of the clients and your intentions as a consultant. You discuss the fee, you write down the fee structure, and you have things as well like time and travel and court appearances, depositions, mailings, parking, mileage, all of those things. And then you provide a curriculum vitae, which shows the experience you've had from professional experiences to tree preservation, plans and site assessments, and all of the legal work, any written lectures that you've done or writings that you've done, and also your professional affiliations, certifications, and education. So those are really important for developing yourself as a consultant and getting a contract. The next thing is, how do you market? And we've talked about the marketing part already, and I'll just add a couple of things. Giving it away is really important, particularly if you're talking to a garden club or a school or teaching classes at the botanical garden. Those things are incredibly important for setting up contact and information with other people, particularly lawyers and the public that may need you. One of the things that we do is we do advertise in the Yellow Pages and on AT&T, and we also advertise on public radio. We have print advertising for our brochures, and we don't do social media, but we are starting with the Facebook or the Face web page, and we have, of course, our logo, our stationery, and the normal things that you would have if you're in a business. So going over these business aspects is all part of the marketing. You have to have a corporate image, which is something that you develop over time, and then keep track of all your clients. Having a brand is important. You know, coming from myself, I'm coming from a tree service background, so we keep all of our clients in a huge database, 5,000 clients, increasing all the time, and every once in a while we send out letters. And I always keep my name separate from the company, and under my name I always put ASCA, and I explain a few things about consulting. These have really helped develop my consulting business over the years, although I still rely on the tree service as my main platform and our main family income. But the more I transition as I get older, the more I realize that this will probably be an ongoing thing because I have such passion and I do love my work. Anytime any of the experts want to jump in, go right ahead. I've given some good strategies, and if you'd like to add some of your specific strategies, I don't use too much direct marketing, and I don't use newspapers.
This is Barb. As I said, I found that advertising did not work at all for me, that really referrals and word of mouth worked for me, and in the Washington area, the ASCA website drove a lot of business to my office.
This is Jim here. Traditionally, in our 29 years, we've used indirect marketing approaches, writing papers and speaking. We have a website and we have a Facebook page. You can become friends of Port Science at Facebook. The only direct marketing we normally do is every few years we call the communities that are in our area, in our service area, and we talk to the planning department and ask if they have a referral list for consulting arborists to prepare reports, tree reports, tree preservation reports, or other kinds of reports. And we want to make sure that we are on all of those lists. And so I think that's that would be considered a direct marketing activity.
Well, that's an excellent idea, Jim. Thanks for giving us that little tip. We do send out mailers. We target certain neighborhoods and markets for our tree service, but I kind of go along for the ride as a consultant. And as a result, over the 37 years I've been in this business, I have a brand, or I have a expertise which people call on me to answer their questions. So that's also a good strategy, is just keeping your name out there, volunteering, teaching, and I don't get paid for any of those things.
One of the things I wanted to address, and I see a few people have questions about cost of insurance and all that. It's hard, to give a single answer, and it's even harder to give any kind of answer, and we can't talk about fee structure except for the fact that you need to understand all of the costs of your business before you start deciding what your fee structure will be. And one thing that we haven't talked about, and I remember from when I started my business, because I started it from scratch, is that I had to invest a fair amount of money into the company to just jumpstart it. I mean, you have to write in checks for getting your website domain, your website developed, your insurance, all the branding, all the marketing, everything that we've talked about. That money is going to come from you, and over time, my company paid me back for that. But so there's upfront costs that you're going to have to cover all the insurance tools, branding, etc. And then you also have to figure out what your ongoing costs are in order to be able to start to set your fees.
Yeah, setting fees is a tough one. I basically listened to a couple of lawyers who offered me some information on expert witnessing and what they normally pay and what's appropriate. And using those parameters, I found my particular fee that would seem to be just fine to cover all of our costs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jim here, I'd like to add one more marketing comment. It was really the best advice I got from a successful landscape maintenance contractor was join your client's professional organization.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to work on golf courses, join the Golf Course Superintendents Association and learn how to play golf. If you want to work for large commercial and institutions and join the Grounds Managers Association, the Building and Office Managers Association. If you want to work for homeowners associations, there's a homeowners association. So I think that you want to think about who your clients are, what you want your clients to be, and then join the organization and be active in that organization. And that's going to get your name and your expertise known to the client group that you want to service. And so I want to offer that as an observation.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Jim. That's an excellent observation, and I did take notes as a presenter, and I'm also feeling like I'm learning a lot as we go along.
Well, thanks. Cabot, I want to ask you one more question as we transition to the question and answer section. There's a question from the audience that is, why does Cabot feel it is important to keep separation between consulting and his tree care work? Would you like to go ahead and address that?
Yes, thank you. That is part of our ethics, standard practice, and procedures, and the answer is, as a consultant, you can't go out representing your tree service and say, that tree looks dangerous, therefore we, as a tree service, have to cut it down. What you can go out and say is, that tree looks hazardous, the risk is such and such and apparent, and you should consider removing it in a certain period of time. And if you'd like a bid, our company will provide that service. But as a consultant, you want to let them know that you are only telling them the risk of the failure as a consultant, and not that you, as a tree service owner, should cut the tree down. And you have to make that absolutely clear.
There's some really, really good questions here. Making yourself known at local garden centers and nurseries is a good source of referrals. I might have to use that. Someone asked the question, how do I know I'm qualified to do consulting work? I have a BCMA designation is that enough, or do I need to get an RCA? I think that's a way of putting the question. I'll just comment and say, when you have the BCMA, that's really the highest qualification of your technical expertise, right? It's a challenging scenario-based exam that says, when you pass it, says you know a lot about trees and their management and everything associated with trees. Becoming an RCA takes that technical knowledge and builds onto it the skills of report writing, of understanding the legal process, of adding a component of ethics and understanding responsibilities to clients. So I think that the RCA, the Registered Consulting Arborist designation, builds on our technical expertise. And I'll leave it to you to decide if that is a good feature or not. We had a couple questions about E&O insurance. E&O insurance is a professional liability insurance. It covers the aspects of our practice that are in professional advice and information that would then cover us against a negligent claim. So it's different than your general liability insurance in that regard. And again, we will have webinar topics on each of these fundamental issues.
Great. Thank you so much, Jim. And we're just about out of time. Do we have any final comments from the three of you?
Yes, I wanted to answer one question that was put on the chat about a separate card for business and a separate for the consulting and separate card for the tree service business. At this time, I have one card that covers both, and I use both sides of the card, but we are developing a second card for just consulting. And that was an excellent question.
I just wanted to make a comment, and in closing, once in a while people will turn to me and after I've given them an opinion or done some consulting for them, and they'll say, wow, you have a really great job. And I always answer them the same way. I sure do. I love what I do. And, you know, there are days, but 90% of the time I am thrilled to be a consulting arborist.
And I'll just add that I want to thank everyone for participating. If you're in the business of giving advice in our field, in the world of tree care and urban forests, and that's what you're doing, you're consulting, and there's special knowledge and expertise that you need to have, and ASCA is a place that can provide it. And with that, I'll say thank you to you all, and I'll pass it back to Sean.
Thank you, Jim. A lot of great participation and great questions from the group, and thank you to our presenters. I'd like to take a moment now to thank everyone else for their participation in today's event. And as we bring this webinar to a close, if you would please take a moment to locate the webinar evaluation form in link number 3 in the links box. Go ahead and click on the link. It will open a separate web browser window, not interfering with what you're currently seeing. Please take a moment now to complete the evaluation and provide us with your very valuable feedback on today's presentation, as well as any topics you'd like to see covered in future webinars. For those of you interested in obtaining ISA CEUs, the information is in the chat box now for who you will contact and the email address to send to get your ISA CEU. Today's presentation was recorded and will be available on the ASCA website very soon. To register for any of our upcoming online seminar series, please visit www.asca-consultants.org. Then be sure to click on the Webinars tab. Thank you again for your participation in today's webinar. Today's program is copyright 2012 by the American Society of Consulting Arborists, with all rights reserved. This concludes today's program. Thank you, and you may now disconnect.